All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order, and in roll call, I just want to make sure we're missing Charles and Natalie, and that's it. All right, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, I can't understand why, because it's so beautiful outside, but we have nobody from the community here tonight, so we don't have to do number 3. And let me take a vote for the meetings.
Okay.
All right, let me take I'd like to take a vote for the minutes for last month.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, motion by Ken. Second, thank you. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
I'm unable to vote, Julie, because I wasn't here.
Okay, one abstain. Any opposed? Perfect. It's, motion to approve the minutes has been approved. The trustees report. My report, actually, it's going to come under, old business. So I'll just bring it up and talk to you then about what's going on with the tuition reimbursement. And treasurer's report, do you?
So unfortunately, I forgot the folder at home. My backup job was failed, so I apologize. But we'll have it for the next meeting.
The first time I didn't bother bringing mine because I thought 2 other people have it. Okay, so we can get Julie the information to put in the minutes, and we'll just go over it again next month.
Next month. Yep.
Next month. Okay, and director's report.
All right, so you have seen my director's report, of course. Before I'll take any comments or anything about it, the additions I have this month. So we just got approved for our first state aid allotment award. So that was for, are you ready to write, Julie? Because it's a number. I'm going to give you a number. $36,866.94. So they give us the state aid in 2 disbursements. So this is the first disbursement, and we get another one in the spring. So they'll be about around the same amount of money of each one. So they did, in the state, get a 14% increase in the amount of state aid they are allowed to give out this year, increase in that budget line. So we did get like a nice little extra money, which is nice. So yay.
It's always nice.
Yay, more money. So that was the first state aid award for the year that we've gotten. And the other, so this is just like one of those times of year, I guess. So Jan Kent is one of our staff who used to be an assistant librarian, worked for years and years for us. She retired, then she came back as a page. And so she's been working as a page for a long time. But she's been struggling with a lot of health issues. And what has happened over time is that she'll have some health issues. She'll kind of be like, I should resign. And then we kind of convince her, just take some time off and come back. And so this has happened probably like 5 times since I've been there. So she just did like let us know again that she has like a lot of health issues and she's struggling and she feels like that she should resign. And this time I kind of said like, look, if you feel like it's time, she's a grandma too, and new grandma and stuff too. So it looks like she will probably resigning from her page job. So we'll post that, but it hasn't happened yet. But that is, looks like that is gonna be happening as well. But she needs to take care of her health since this keeps happening. So we want to make sure that she is well. And those are my 2 spare things. So does people have any comments or questions about anything that was in my report?
I did just about the budget, and if you could just explain a little bit more about.
Yes, I will explain the budget. I know, yeah, she did too. I'm like, I didn't mean to be confusing, but I was. So that's okay. So that was just the document. So the document I showed with you was the notes that I brought and shared with. So at the budget meeting was our interim town manager and also the finance director, Rodney Conley, and Nick Navin, who's the assistant treasurer, and Giuliani Vittini from HR were in the meeting with me. So what I kind of shared in this document of my budget notes, so the state requires certain calculations to be made to determine but what we should minimally be getting to be able to have state aid. And so basically, you're taking the last 3 years of your budget, you're averaging those together, and then you're timesing it times 1.025. So you're wanting this increase every year that you should be getting. So I was giving, so this is what I had sent to them. So one of the things that had happened was that every year we also get appropriated money for the tech warrant, but they weirdly don't, well, I shouldn't say it's weird, but like just the way they do it in this town, they don't put that in with our total budget amount, but they should, or we should be accounting for it. Previous directors should have always been accounting that we also have tech warrant money. So I had started doing that, reporting that to the state, which should be getting reported. So what my sheet that I have in the packet shows is that that's what the first part is like, if we didn't have the tech warrant factored in, that was the number, because when I'm talking to the budget committee, they don't factor in the tech warrant, so they are not looking at that. It's kind of, because it's a separate thing, so I wanted to give them that number that they had to come to, which was the 1,622,130 was the number that they needed to give me, and then with me counting the tech warrant, the total needed to come up to 1,631,696. So that's the minimum that we need to have in our budget to be able to qualify for state aid. So that was just kind of like, I was kind of trying to show them these are the two different numbers, because they really care about the operating budget, and are looking at that first number and not the second number when I'm meeting with them. So as long as there was $10,000 in the tech warrant, that would get us to the right number that we needed. And the tech warrant has been, like this past year was a $15,000 that gets appropriated for the library. So it's not a worry that we wouldn't get there. But meeting with them, they have our budget, not including the tech warrant, to be $1,642,000. So we're nicely over where we need to be, but it's mostly salaries. There were some increases in the Noble budget lines this year, which are just kind of normal increases and that's like tech support. It's for the databases that we get, like the databases, they just increase every year. The companies charge a little bit more every year. So they kind of factor in about a 5% increase for that. And what else is in there? And then just like the membership fees. So everything went up a little bit. So they accounted for that in our budget, and then the salaries and the salary increases. So we should be, even without the tech warrant, safely over the minimum number that we need to be at. So does that answer all the questions?
Yes. I was afraid that we were under. So
no, we're not. Yeah, we're not under.
I thought the same thing.
No, yeah. So we're fine. So yeah, this was just like the sheet I shared with them. Okay. So I didn't see their numbers until I got in there, and I don't have their number sheet yet from that. So we should be good. Yes, Julie.
Yes, due to the fact that employees have been unionized.
Yep.
Is there any difference? Were there raises involved, or?
Yes. So part of the union contract that was agreed upon for the 3-year contract was that they're getting 2.5% every year for the next 3 years. Now they also, one of the things that also got agreed to was for the town to do a compensation and class survey for library staff, which has not been done. I don't know the last time it was done, but a long time ago, I guess. So that is due to be done soon. Obviously, I'm not involved in it, but then so depending if that whatever number comes out of that comp and class survey, like they have comparable towns that they use, if that shows that they need to have more of a raise to get to that, and the town likes to have salaries be at a 75th percentile average. So as long as they're at that place, so they will once they do the study, then they'll reimburse or do back pay for them from July 1st if there's anything that needs to be rectified.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions? I'm glad I have all the answers right now, so it's good. No, nothing.
Okay.
Okay.
Then
Great. Yeah, you're welcome.
we'll move on to old business, and that's the tuition reimbursement scholarship policy. I guess it's just the time of year. It's been really hard getting people together to meet. There's just a lot of other stuff going on, I guess, during the holiday season. So we're going to try and get together before our next meeting in January, but we're kind of tabling it till after New Year's. So we'll revisit that again January or February. I'll let you know if we get to meet. We're going to try. So for new business, amendment to collection.
Madam Chair, could I just
Oh.
ask a question? On the tuition reimbursement scholarship policy, is that going to be, is there a committee or is there?
There's a
gonna be the
subcommittee.
trustees meeting to discuss it?
We
We had a subcommittee meet.
Yeah.
We created a subcommittee. We've met once. We talked last meeting, and then we do have to meet again to revise what we've been doing. So that will come back after
It'll be brought to the
It'll be
full
back,
committee
Brock.
for
Yes,
Mhm.
for full
whether
approval.
we like it or we don't like it.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
You're welcome. Okay, so for under new business, A, the amendment to collection development policy.
Yes, so at the end of the packet, I have put the collection development policy, or most of it. Again, so just the very last page is all that matters. So I've attended lately a couple of different meetings that are focusing on intellectual freedom and on shoring up our library policies to make sure that we really are covering ourselves in all ways, shape, and forms. And so one of the things that was recommended that when I looked at our policy again, I was like, I'm pretty sure that's not in there. I'm like, well, we should add it. So the very last line that I just put in says, once a title has gone through the reconsideration process, then the item may not be reconsidered again for a period of 3 years from the date of the decision. And that's just to prevent, so this happened in Reading recently, a book was challenged, and then 2 weeks later, it was challenged again. And so, you already made a decision on it. You don't need to keep doing it. So they said like to choose a number that was anywhere between 2 and 5 years to say that you're not going to reconsider something constantly over and over again. And that helps present some of these groups that a lot of the challenges are coming from organized groups. And so they understand that they have to go through a process and that they need to be like, oh yeah, we've challenged it, now we're going to challenge it again, now we're going to challenge it again, to try to wear down. So this is to prevent that process from happening. So
I'm sorry, I don't see that.
it's at the very last, not the one I gave you in your packet.
Just flip that whole packet over on your,
Yep, not that packet. Yep.
flip
Your very last page
turn that whole thing over
that one
in
that
your
you
right
have.
hand.
Yep, and just go to the last page. And just the
I thought
highlighted.
it was.
Yep, no, it's not that one.
That's
We'll
okay.
talk about that one next, Julie.
I had a question. Have there been any recent challenges?
Here at the library, no. At our library, no. But I'm hopeful that it's because we have such robust policies that it will deter people from doing so. But there has definitely been, and I get like during this past election season, I am an unenrolled person in any party, and so I get emails from everybody, and I was getting some emails, especially right after the election, actually, well, maybe before too, from a group that's not necessarily aligned with any party, but they were just basically talking about going into libraries and taking back the collections and, canceling diverse programming. And so it was interesting that I'm like, oh, they don't know I'm a librarian, when I got it. But there's obviously some organized groups who are looking to, prevent certain kinds of programming, prevent certain kinds of materials, etc. And I'm just randomly getting these emails, right? So it's definitely a good time to make sure that we are covering all of our bases. So I randomly picked 3 years as a number. So I don't know if anybody has any feelings about the number of years for, before you can reconsider an item or not. just like 2 to 5 was given as a example that, from the program, the webinar, or it wasn't a webinar, but it was a conversation thing that I was in. So I don't know if anybody has any feelings about adding this to the collection development policy, if we want to just accept it as written, if we want to change the year, leaving it up to discussion. Julie?
Yeah, I think it's a good compromise. It's pretty much halfway through.
Yeah.
And we need to have this statement.
Yeah, I was like, oh, we don't have that.
We need that.
We need to fix this
Yeah.
right away.
In my opinion, we absolutely need to include that statement.
Sure. Any other discussion, thoughts?
I just wouldn't even care if it was longer, but by then it's almost obsolete because there'll be new books.
Yeah,
out.
there'll
So
probably be new things
that's what I
people will
figured.
be-
So I think 3 years.
Well, I mean, the interesting thing is, like, a lot of older titles are still getting challenged. So, but and it's, like, no one wants to, like, I don't want to have on my desk, like, a challenge and then, like, a month later have the
Right.
same
No,
exact
makes
thing
sense.
to do over and over again. And, or have it, have to come to you guys, eventually, and like, oh, didn't we just talk about this one? It's like, yeah, it's a waste of our time, right? Too. So this just kind of prevents that.
I have a question.
Sure.
Are these groups that are making contact with you, are they into banning materials and banning books? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes. So the short answer to that is yes. They're into preventing certain materials being in the library or people being able to access certain materials. They're also, same thing for like programs as well. Like they don't want to see certain programming, so they're, working to make that be a reality that those can't happen in a public space, which of course is the opposite of what we do, right? We're trying to have intellectual freedom and let people have everything. Like you don't have to. You don't want to read the book, don't read it. That's easy, but should be available. But yes, that's what these groups are doing.
I'm fine with 3. I mean, I think like Donna, I would be fine with 5. But since there hasn't been a challenge recently, I don't know if
I
it
think-
makes that big a difference.
yeah.
But
I
3 or
think
5 is
the 3 seems good because it's a like a term for each of us. Like we were 3 years on this board, so
Oh.
it kind of aligns
Oh,
with
that
that
makes sense.
a little bit.
I didn't even think of that.
Not that it would, it's arbitrary, but at least like if someone wants to challenge it in 3 years, they might have a few different people if that's really what they want to pursue. But also it's 3. I don't. Sorry.
No, well, I have a further question.
Yeah, go ahead.
How much power do these groups have to ban programs and information and books, etc.?
Well, that's a really interesting question, Reenie. So Massachusetts, very sadly, is home to rather a large number of hate groups that have been designated hate groups. And so the trick, like, and one of the things we put in the policy as well is that it has to be a Danvers resident
Mhm.
who protests anything like this. So the power that they have is of numbers and organization. So they create playbooks so we're going to go to, these 5 libraries, and if they all have this book, we're going to, ask that they get rid of, this book. And so they'll maybe within their organization, they have, somebody who lives in Peabody, somebody who lives in Danvers, somebody who lives in Reading. And so they'll have these people go find the process and fill out the forms and protest. So they'll do these steps where they'll try to go through. Now, the power is with us, right? So like it's gonna, these forms are so that they're gonna come to us. I'm gonna look at it, and if a need be, it's gonna come to the trustees, and you're gonna decide what to do about that material, right? Like it's not their choice, but depending who the person is, and if there are multiple requests, or how it goes, maybe there is pressure that we feel to, maybe we do need to get rid of that back or not. And I mean, it's easier for us to keep things in a public library, like school libraries. If they get hit with this, it's much more difficult. But in public libraries, because we have wide collections for the entire public, it's a little harder, but that doesn't mean that they're not gonna try. And there was somebody who was running for some position, I forget what, Massachusetts, it was maybe a couple of years ago, and they were coming to public libraries and taking a book that has some content that's, more adult content in it, and they were reading it out loud in like the lobbies of libraries to try to illustrate that it was material that shouldn't exist in the library. Now, of course, it's material that was meant for a certain audience, and but their point was to be like, oh, well, children shouldn't be able to see this. Well, it's not meant for children, and whatever. So people, that's like another way that sometimes people or groups will try to apply the pressure to say this is material that shouldn't be available. So but they have a list of tricks, right, of things to try and to do, and libraries, usually trust in the goodness mostly of people, and that they're not going to try to do this kind of thing. And so this is why we need to have strong policies in place to prevent the bad actors.
Okay, so this went out with the package for tonight's meeting. Did everyone get a chance to read it? Because I'd like to vote on it. And I know over the course of the last couple of months we've talked about different parts of this, but it's done now.
Yeah,
Does
and
everyone-
and the policy's the exact same,
Mhm.
except for just adding this one line at the end. So I didn't change anything else. It was just, let's cover this one base that we didn't cover.
So can I get someone to make a motion?
I will.
Okay,
I'll second it.
second by Jess. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any
Yay.
opposed? Okay, motion carries.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And so that will bring us to the next item on the agenda, which, and I'm not expecting any votes, because this, I think, needs us to look, and I did present this to some of my library staff as well to kind of look through. And so the programming policy, so just the same as the collection development policy, this is a programming policy. So it's doing the exact same thing as we do with materials, but for programming. So I looked at, I cannot tell you how many policies, and I sort of pulled together what I thought was the best of it. It really does have the kitchen sink in it as well. I really put everything in it. But for the most part, the only stuff that we really need to look at is the first 2 pages. The rest of it, then there's a form, a reconsideration form, like we have with collection development form, reconsideration. And then the rest of it is all stuff that's just from ALA, so it's not anything I wrote. It's just things that are appendices. So really the policy is the first 2 pages. So if you don't mind, just glancing through it, we don't have to get deeply into it tonight, but I do want to just have any thoughts. If you have any immediate thoughts about it, let me know. And then I would just ask, when we reconvene again in January, maybe there might be a tweak or two if my staff comes back with anything as well. But if you feel like there's something in here that needs to either be explained better or struck out or anything like that, then I feel like this one's a little trickier than it is with materials, just because programming has a little bit of a wild card element in that any given presenter could say anything in a program and they could end up offending somebody. And there has been some recent programming in the state, not in Danvers, where there has been groups or people who have felt, hurt or offended by the program. And so we want to make sure, again, that we're just covering our library and our staff with what we are presenting, and that we're also doing this also gives us an outline of kind of a due diligence for the staff as well for what we are trying to do. And if someone comes to us and says, why are you having this program, where we have a policy that we can show and say, this is why we have it. So I did actually just, did I do this just today? I did, according to my staff's feedback, I just did add a line today that the one thing that they had of concern immediately was just to make sure that we put in a statement, which I did add today, that says that we do support in our programming equality, diversity, inclusion, and that we believe in the human dignity of all persons, especially those in marginalized communities. So to make sure that we're putting supports in for any of our marginalized communities, in case people do push back about some of the programming that we have. And it is, even though we are believers in intellectual freedom, that we do, it is, and that technically things like hate speech are in the First Amendment, are covered by the First Amendment. However, we as a public institution are allowed to make strong statements to say of what we are in support of. And so that we can have a statement like in there to say that we do support that those kind of things when we're doing our programming as well, and not the opposite. And we don't have to have any comments if we don't want to now, but if people just want to take a minute, look it
Madam
over.
Chair, if I may, about the fourth paragraph down on the draft policy, it says, talks about due to space limitations or due to the nature of the program, attendance at
It's on the second
programs may
page.
be limited.
Oh.
Registration for the program may be done on the library's website calendar of events or by calling on visiting the library. In keeping with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 78, Section 7, names of registrants are confidential. Then it goes on to say, program presenters may ask attendees to voluntarily provide their names at the time of the program. Seems like we're saying they're confidential, and then somebody's going to ask who they are.
Well, and I'll say that this does happen. So it's confidential. Like, so if you whatever, 50 people register for a program, and the presenter's like, how many people registered? I'm going to say, well, there's 50. And they're like, can I have the names? I'm going to like, no, you can't have the names. But if they're holding the program and they say, oh, like, if you want to sign up for my, list, that's a voluntary thing by the attendees and they want to, then they can do that. So there's an option. So it's basically just giving the option that if people want to give their names to a presenter, they are, but we, the library, are not going to give out names. So we'll protect the privacy. But if people want to give up their privacy at the program, then that's their option.
That explanation makes it a little different than saying that program presenters may ask attendees to voluntarily provide their names at the time of the
All
program.
right, so I'll reword it so that
And
it's,
it just,
so it's
you're
like,
saying that it's confidential.
It says voluntarily, though.
Mhm.
Presenter may ask attendees to voluntarily provide their names at the time of the program. So it's just caveat that you may be asked your name by the program presenter, but you don't have to give it.
Right, and
so Mike obviously, was interpreting that differently.
Well,
So,
it says it's confidential, and then just saying that they can voluntarily ask.
so maybe we can just,
Presenters may ask attendees to voluntarily provide their names at the time of the program. When you're saying it's confidential, then you're asking their name.
so we can just change that sentence.
yeah.
That some presenters may
Doesn't make
ask.
sense.
It's entirely up to the attendee if they want to do that. It's not a requirement.
Yeah,
of the
I'll
library.
figure
Yeah,
out a
we can-
way to
It's a
reword
direct
that a
point.
little bit. Well, yeah, that is what voluntarily means.
Yeah.
One person at a time.
Okay. Mike, were you done?
To the director's point, I get that part. Like, okay, you were interested in my program, that type of deal there, but the way this is worded, it's completely different than that.
And Corey, did you have?
I think the word voluntarily indicates very clearly that it was not required and that you would be giving it to the program presenter, not the library, like for the program presenter to do what they will with it.
Feel free to rework it.
Yeah,
and
I think I can probably
Yeah.
rework it to be a little clearer than that is.
So
'cause
it's
I
not,
mean,
it won't say that all program presenters may ask. We'll
Right,
just
yeah, yeah.
reword it, so.
I'll reword it. Thank you
Yeah.
for that, Mike. That's good to.
Okay. Any other comments?
I have two sort of.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is why we're here.
So, I know that there's some things that I might not know fully, but and I know that these presenters aren't going to be alone with minors, but is there any query forms that have to be filled out by the presenters of children programs?
We do not, the library doesn't do queries because we don't ever leave them alone with
Okay.
children. So, yeah, we don't do it.
Okay. And then, is there anything in here that about like trigger warnings or anything like that have to be said by the title or anything like that, if so that legally the library is not responsible for anything that would come out of a program if there's something that could be identified as a trigger?
That's hard, right? Because I mean, so many things could be.
No, I understand
trigger,
that it's
right.
But like there's like clear trigger ones that are usually spelled out. But
That's a good question. I mean, to say, like, I looked at a lot of policies and I didn't see anything like with trigger warnings in it, but let me look into that.
And not saying, there's so many different programs that are out there, and some be bereavement and stuff like that, and I didn't know if there's anything that there's any trigger stuff that could
Yeah,
come
I
along
mean,
with
because
that.
we've certainly had programs like that, but I don't think we've ever been, like, it always seems kind of obvious what it's
No,
about,
true.
right?
I just, there's...
I mean, and certainly the description is usually, because I mean, we do have a description, right? It's not just a name.
Right.
Like we had that Death Cafe. like what's that? Well, you look at the description and, someone from the funeral home was talking about, right?
I'm
Talking about
sorry,
grief.
I cannot hear you.
I don't
Yeah,
think
just-
her mic
I
is
don't-
working.
Press the button.
I tried.
Oh, press it.
Here.
No, I was just saying that if there was trigger warnings for any programs, in case, and there's so many different varieties coming through the library, which is great. I just want to make sure that if there are any things that could be a trigger warning,
Right.
they do have
and that
that.
might be something that's a procedural,
Right.
That wouldn't be in the policy, but could be procedural.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? Like that we would make sure that if there's something that we felt is a trigger, that needs a trigger warning, that we put it into the.
Yeah, I just didn't know legally what the town does about,
I
certain
don't-
stuff like that
That's a
either.
good question. I don't know.
And
I
if
don't know.
there's like something that says that like the library is not responsible for the content of.
Well, it does say that
Okay, I didn't.
in there
Sorry. Okay.
somewhere.
From
So-
the beginning,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah.
on the first page.
Okay.
Like I've looked at it so many times now, it's all just a blur. But yeah, it does say there in there somewhere that we're not responsible for. So that library sponsorship does not
Mhm.
constitute an endorsement of the content of the program
Okay.
or the views expressed by participants and program topics. We say that. I knew we were definitely saying that.
Yeah, we had discussed that previously.
Like absolutely,
I knew it was there.
absolutely is not we can't control all the content that is happening. Not and for the most part, this is not a again, like kind of like the same with materials. Mostly, it's not a problem, but we want to make sure that we're covered if there is a problem. So that's where this is at. So if are there any other comments for now?
Do you expect any problem when it comes to, you're talking about the paragraph below about nature and success of program, and it talks about age limits? Do you expect any issues with somebody say, well, I really want to attend, and
Well, so I'll say if we have any problems with
Might run
programs,
into some
that's
problems.
the most likely thing that will happen, because we do sometimes have, and we did actually in 2023 have like some issues where a couple of adults that didn't have children wanted to come into a story time, for preschoolers, and we were like, no, because that's just kind of creepy. Like, why you want to be in there? And so that's like where something like this comes into play, right? Where we can say, hey, this is meant for this age group, and for, if you're an adult, you need to be with a child. Like, that's, for this, that's the intention of this program, not, I'm just going to sit in there, pour it. So that was actually, our children's librarian, Amy, did look, she said, thank you for putting that in there when she was looking at that.
That's nice to hear that somebody's, takes responsibility and you don't belong here. I guess what I'm looking at is like, if you have a age for children, like teens and then older teens, like, I'm 17 years old and I want to attend something this, is it geared for like a 13-year-old? It talks about developmental, so is a 17-year-old is going to be, he or she may have interests that are in the program, or they may have other interests that might disrupt the program,
Right, yeah, no, and that is always a consideration when we're doing teen programming. And I'll say, overall, most of the time with teen programs, it tends to be that middle school age that really comes to the programming, because they still have time to do it. They don't have jobs. They're not all on teams or doing activities as much, so they're more likely to be the ones who are coming. So it's less likely to see a 17-year-old. But everything usually gets advertised with the age range. So some things will be advertised like, oh, this is for kids in 6th grade to 9th grade, or whatever. Yeah.
That covers it.
Yeah. We try to do that, and some things will be more broad, but we usually don't have, the older kids usually don't come to it anyway, so it's usually not a problem anyhow. But yeah, we do try to work that out. Usually the bigger problem is usually with kids who are like 4th graders who want to go to the teen programs because they're interested in the topic, but they're, the teens don't want 4th graders with them in the program. So, and that's when you start saying like, well, is there a way to have this content for a younger age group to make them happy?
We need the Taylor Swift content for the younger age group.
How young?
Young.
Like
Yeah.
like younger than the tween ones that they had. Like,
Yes.
Yeah.
1st, 2nd, 3rd grade. We eat that up.
All right, that's good. We can Taylor Swift it out. We can do all the Swifties. My household's a Harry Styles household, so no, we do like Taylor,
Could be
but too.
both.
But we're about Harry. He's our man.
So any other comments regarding the policy draft?
So please just look at that some more, and like in next month I'll make some changes. I'll look into trigger warnings. I think that's a good point. And thank you for bringing it up. No, I'm glad you did. Well, this is like why we talk about it, right? Because as I said, like, that'll probably be a procedural thing, because I think that would be a smart thing that I can have staff when they're planning a program be like, is there something in this that we should note in the description as this we talk about blah, and maybe that's a problem. Yeah, death, it might be a problem.
If there is if you say no, you can't talk about anything that does do, like, if they do deviate from what they're talking about.
Right.
It's obvious not to do that.
Yes. And so, like, I can't even think of a time when that's happened. Usually when there's a problem, which again we put in here too, is that sometimes it's an attendee of a program who objects to something in the content, and then they become disruptive because they want to say, no, this is, so, and I've heard lots of stories of that happening, and that's happened not here to me, but like to some other places that's happened, that I've been, where there's been a disruptive person, and we did put that in there. If you're disruptive, we can tell you to go. Because it happens. Sometimes people tend just to be a disruptor, right? So that happens too. All right, so I'll make some changes, the little changes, and I'll bring it back in January. And if you think of anything else in between now and then, or look at it between now and then, if you shoot me an email, if you note something, or we'll talk about it more in January too. I'll be having my staff fine tune it some more as well then. So that is that. Thank you so much for your time and care in that too. Thanks. And then, moving on.
Okay, we're going to go on to Library Union.
And that was Mike wanted that on the agenda. So, Mike, what did you want to talk about?
Yes, Madam Chair. I take great interest in learning more about the library employees being organized, which is their right. And we hear that they've organized, but we don't hear anything more than that. So I thought some information tonight might be flowing to the trustees who are overall responsible for the library itself and working with the director. But are they? Do we know? Are they AFSCME?
They're
You know
AFSCME,
what
yep.
they are in?
So they're Unit B, so they have their own unit. I have a copy of the contract if you want
You
to
do.
glance at it. Do you want to pass that over to him, just
That
glance
was
at it?
another one of my
So,
questions.
so I literally just got a final copy of it, because I asked for it, so it was still getting like redlined and things for quite a long time. But yeah, so it's an AFSCME and Unit B, so they have their own unit.
Well, thank you very much. That was going to be one of my other questions, but the negotiation took place between who?
So there was 2 members of the library staff, and then.
I don't necessarily need to know their
Yeah, like I
names,
won't
but
tell you. I won't tell you their names.
Are they?
but-
Are they? Most unions have like a steward type thing. In other words,
Right, yeah, so there was, the ASME rep, of course, and then 2 members
the
from.
AFSCME represents somebody from the town,
Yep.
like
s-
the whoever
yeah,
represents for the unions.
Yep,
okay.
yes, yep, so rep, and then 2 of the library staff members go kind of like co-stewarding, I guess, if you want to call it that. So they were there at the negotiations, and then I, of course, was at the negotiations as a listener, I guess, more than anything else. And then the assistant town manager, Jen Breaker, was at those negotiations, and then usually also someone from HR, usually Philippe Hippolyte, and then also Rodney Conley to deal with it because the financial pieces came into it as well. So those were the people who were usually there at the negotiations.
So the negotiation took place with you and AFSCME, and who else?
So the assistant town manager and the finance director, and usually
Yeah.
someone from HR.
Okay. I mean, being a former union employee myself, and being at one time obviously deeply involved in this, but now that I see this, it's something that we should probably all have a copy of and digest, because it does mention everything that they're entitled to here.
Right. Yep.
And if it does become an issue and comes before the board, we want to be educated on it.
Well, the issues technically shouldn't come before the board, right? Because the board isn't in charge of any employee relations. Because now this is like, especially with this contract,
I mean,
is
I
like
just
it's
looked
between them and the
about-
town, right? So, so that's it shouldn't come before the board, except as basic information, right, about the union. But
But, yeah, no, I just think that it would be a good idea for us to,
I mean,
be aware of what
it's
they're
it's a public document, so of course you are welcome to have copies of it. If everybody wants it, I'll make copies for the next meeting. Up to you.
Sure.
Sure. Yep. It's fine.
Why don't we, for all of us,
What?
why don't we, maybe for next meeting, all of us have a copy?
Yeah. Sure.
Can it be
Yeah.
emailed?
Yeah, I'll see where it is. I guess I guess it got emailed to me, so I must have it somewhere. I mean, it actually should be on the town's website as well too. So,
You need to waste a lot of paper.
yeah,
Right.
that's true. I can email it.
Pretty
out.
hefty document.
It is a heavy. Yeah,
Yes.
it's got
I'm sure we
whatever,
can find
like
it digitally.
30 something pages or something. Yeah, it's a lot. It is a lot. In there as well. Mike, did you have any other questions, or does anybody else have any other questions?
I think that, thank you very much, and I'd be looking forward to hopefully getting a copy of this, but it looks like it's copied from every other union in town.
Yeah, it's
This was a cut and paste,
yeah, it's predominantly, the same as pretty much most every other contract in town, and it's with like a few changes. So, and then in 3 years they can make more.
And again, that
More.
doesn't fall under our purview. If things come to the board, we'll have the background information as well, if there was an incident that would require us
Right.
to
Now,
act
no
on it.
part-timers are not included.
Part-timers are included, so,
Included?
yep, so who's included is, not the pages. I'm like, it might be easier to say who is not included, but the full-time and part-time staff are all included except for the pages, me, the assistant director, the archivist. Is that everybody? Wait, oh, and the bookkeeper. That's who's not covered by the union, but everybody, all the other positions are covered by the union, so the full-time and part-time.
Interesting. Thank you
Yeah,
very much.
yeah, you're welcome, of course. Happy to give information. Anybody have any other questions about the union before we move along? All right.
Okay, does anyone have any other issues they wanted to bring up? If not, I'll take a motion for adjournment.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Okay,
I
Rini?
wish everyone a very Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All approve?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Have a happy holiday.
Yay.